Mafia boss lived alone for 30 years until 5 blind virgins knocked at his door. A storm, a locked mansion on a cliff. A man the city fears opens the door, and 5 trembling girls who cannot see step inside. He swore to live alone forever, but now he's their shield and their secret. The clinic they ran from calls them pure, fixable, valuable. Someone stitched a tracker under one of their skins. And the man who hunts them knows this house, knows this boss like a ghost from his past. The safe choice is to hand them back. The right choice is war. He can buy their sight, but the price is his surrender. He can keep them safe, but the world will burn. When the enemy offers a deal at midnight, freedom for them, chains for him, what will he choose when love, blood, and salvation all knock at once? The storm howls against bulletproof glass, rain drumming a violent symphony on the cliffside mansion's slate roof. At midnight, the security system chirps, movement at the gates. Through high-definition cameras, Corvin Hale watches 5 women stumble through sheets of rain, their hands linked in a human chain as they follow the sound of crashing waves below. His jaw tights. 30 years of ironclad isolation broken by desperate knocking that echoes through marble halls. Their uneven rhythm speaks of terror, of flight. He recognizes the signs. He's spent decades hunting them. "Sir?" His butler, Matthews, hovers uncertainly near the security panel. "The protocols." "Override." Corvin's voice cuts like steel through silk. "Shut down exterior lights except the front entrance. I want ground teams scanning the perimeter. Now." He moves to the door himself, each step measured, despite the urgency clawing at his chest. The women flinch at the sound of heavy bolts disengaging. They huddle closer together, rain plastering their clothes to trembling frames. "Inside." He pitches his voice low, gentle despite its natural authority. "Quickly." They move as one unit, guided by the tallest. Elise, he notes, cataloging details with military precision. Her unseeing eyes track sound with remarkable accuracy. Behind her, a shorter woman with a healing split lip, Talia, keeps one hand protectively on Elise's back while the other grips Juniper's sleeve. Briar and Odette bring up the rear, their feet leaving wet prints on imported marble. Matthews, the foyer heaters, and bring medical supplies. Corvin secures the door, each lock engaging with deadly finality. Phones, tablets, any electronics, surrender them now. "We don't have any." Elise's voice carries quiet strength despite her obvious exhaustion. "They were taken when we were acquired." The word choice makes Corvin's blood run cold. He knows exactly what she means. He's been dismantling these operations piece by bloody piece for 3 decades, but never has the evidence walked straight to his door. 5 breathing witnesses to horrors he's only traced through paper trails and corpses. "Your names?" He keeps his distance, noting how they orient themselves to his voice, how they press closer together at the sound of approaching footsteps, his security team reporting in through earpieces. "I'm Elise." She straightens slightly, a queen despite her circumstances. "With me are Juniper, Talia, Briar, and Odette. We need medical attention. Yes." Corvin signals Matthews, who appears with blankets and a field medical kit. "You'll be treated under aliases. The fewer people who know your real names, the safer you'll be." Talia shifts aggressively. "And why should we trust you?" "Because I'm the only one between you and what's hunting you." Corvin moves to the security panel, fingers dancing across controls. "Whatever followed you through this storm will return with daylight, but they'll find this place sealed tight." The mansion transforms around them, steel shutters sliding silently into place, redundant security systems engaging with soft beeps and whirs. The women track each sound, heads turning in perfect unison that speaks of months learning to navigate without sight. "Dr. Chen is 2 minutes out," Matthews murmurs, passing out thick blankets that smell of cedar and safety. The blue room is prepared. Corvin watches Briar wrap a blanket around Odette's shoulders with gentle efficiency, noting how the others defer slightly to her careful hands. She's the healer among them. He files that away with dozens of other observations. "You'll be examined one at a time," he says. "Matthews will show you to a secure room where you can warm up and dry off. I need to speak with my security team, but I'll return shortly. You have my word. You're safe here." "Your word means nothing to us," Juniper states flatly, but her tone lacks Talia's heat. It's the voice of someone who has learned to navigate power carefully. "We need guarantees." "You'll have them." Corvin's phone vibrates. perimeter teams reporting in. But first, we need to ensure no one followed your trail. The storm works in our favor, but I take no chances. He watches them absorb this, 5 different expressions of wariness and calculation. They've survived something that breaks most people. He can see it in their posture, hear it in the precise way they communicate position through subtle touches and quiet sounds. Matthews appears with fresh clothes, the soft rustle of fabric drawing their attention. This way, ladies. The blue room has attached baths and plenty of space to rest. They move as one unit again, Elise in the lead with her hand trailing the wall, building a mental map with each step. Corvin observes their departure, noting how Talia takes the rear guard position, how Odette counts steps under her breath, how Juniper's fingers twitch as though taking invisible notes. The storm rages outside, wind howling through reinforced walls that have withstood worse than nature's fury. Corvin turns to the security feeds, watching his men sweep the grounds with military precision. No signs of pursuit yet, but he knows better than to relax. Whatever drove 5 blind women to find his fortress won't give up easily. He engages the final security protocols, plunging the exterior into total darkness, save for infrared sensors and motion detectors. The mansion transforms from imposing cliffside estate to impregnable fortress, every entrance sealed, every approach monitored. Sir? Matthews returns, his usually unflappable demeanor showing cracks of concern. Dr. Chen has arrived through the underground garage. She's setting up in the medical suite. Good. Corvin's eyes never leave the monitors. Double the perimeter patrols. I want eyes on every approach, especially the cliff path. Anything moves out there, I want to know before it gets within a mile of the gates. The storm pounds against windows now hidden behind steel shutters, but Corvin knows the real tempest is yet to come. Whatever drove these women to his door will return with the dawn, testing every defense, searching for any weakness. Let them come, he thinks, watching rain turn to sheets of ice against reinforced barriers. They'll find nothing but steel and stone, and his personal promise of retribution. The war room hummed with quiet technology at 4 a.m., screens casting blue shadows across faces carved by exhaustion. 5 women perched on leather chairs around the mahogany conference table, their postures a study in controlled tension. Start from the beginning, Corvin said, keeping his voice deliberately soft. He stood near the window, watching storm clouds grudgingly give way to pre-dawn gray. Elise's head turned slightly, tracking his position by the subtle creak of his leather shoes against hardwood. They called it New Horizons Wellness Clinic. Private, exclusive. Her fingers traced patterns on the table's surface. The brochure promised experimental treatments for degenerative eye conditions. Legitimate at first, Breyer added, her medical background evident in her precise terminology. State-of-the-art facilities, respected specialists. Then came the specialized eye drops. Burned like acid, Talia spat, hands clenching. Within days, total blindness. They kept us sedated, isolated, claimed it was part of the healing process. Juniper's voice trembled. Months of treatments, different doctors each time, questions that had nothing to do with vision therapy. Memory tests, Odette whispered. Reaction times, how we adapted to darkness. Corvin moved, deliberately letting his watch catch the light. Elise's head tracked the soft snap of leather against metal, her spatial awareness impressive. Your house, she said suddenly. It smells like gun oil and rain, military-grade electronics under the white noise generators. Her lips curved slightly. You're not just a wealthy recluse, are you? No. Corvin studied her face, noting the intelligence behind those sightless eyes. I make dangerous men disappear. Good. Talia's response was fierce. Because dangerous men are hunting us. A high-pitched whine cut through the conversation. Corvin was at the monitors instantly, watching a quad-rotor drone skim the clifftop. Down, he commanded sharply. The women dropped from their chairs as if practiced, finding cover with practiced ease. A single shot cracked through the storm shutters, his sniper executing a perfect lead. The drone spiraled into the ocean. Viscari Syndicate signature, his tech reported through the comm. Custom hardware, latest encryption. Corvin's jaw tightened. The Viscari name confirmed his suspicions. The clinic was a front, likely part of their human trafficking network. These women weren't patients. They were test subjects. The nurse, Odette said, into the tense silence. She never told us her name, just slipped us key cards, whispered directions through the ventilation system. Said we had one chance, Juniper added. during shift change when the backup generators were cycling. We memorized the layout for weeks, Elise explained, counting steps, mapping sounds. The storm covered our exit, but she trailed off. But they'll be hunting you, Corvin finished. And leaving now would feed you right back to them. He moved to the security console, engaging additional countermeasures. You'll stay here for as long as it takes. We can't impose, Breyer began. This isn't charity, Corvin cut in. The Vescari syndicate doesn't let assets walk away. You need protection. I need information. We help each other. He watched them process this. 5 different expressions of calculation and wary hope. Their survival instincts were impressive. They'd already positioned themselves with clear paths to both exits, maintaining precise awareness of each other's locations through subtle sounds and air currents. Matthews, he called softly. His butler materialized from the shadows. Show our guests to their rooms. Full access to the East Wing, restricted elsewhere. Dr. Chen will begin medical evaluations in 1 hour. Your phones, he added as they stood. I'll need them. The Vescari have resources in every telecom company. 5 devices appeared, handed over without protest. They understood operational security, another telling detail. Corvin locked the phones in a Faraday-shielded drawer, then typed rapid instructions to his covert medical team. Rest, he told them. Eat. Let Dr. Chen examine you. We'll talk more when you're stronger. They filed out behind Matthews, moving with the synchronized grace of people long accustomed to navigating as a unit. Elise paused at the door, her head tilted. Thank you, she said simply. For believing us. Corvin watched her disappear down the hallway, noting how she trailed one hand along the wall, building a tactile map. Impressive woman, dangerous situation. The storm was fading now, giving way to the false dawn. Somewhere out there, the Vescari were mobilizing resources, calling in favors, tightening their net. They'd come. Eventually. They always did. Let them try, Corvin thought, watching his security teams patrol the grounds like shadows. The Vescari were about to learn why even their worst monsters avoided his territory. Sir? Matthews had returned, silent as always. Dr. Chen is setting up in the medical suite. She's requesting your preferences for triage order. Start with Breyer. She has medical training, can help assess the others. Then Odette. She's favoring her left side. Talia next. That cough needs attention. Juniper's showing signs of malnutrition. Elise last. She's the strongest. Very good, sir. Matthews hesitated. Will you be informing the network? No. Corvin's tone was final. This stays in-house. The network has been compromised before. As you wish. Matthews disappeared, leaving Corvin alone with his thoughts and the soft hum of surveillance equipment. Dawn was coming, bringing with it hunters and questions and the weight of 5 lives now under his protection. He hadn't allowed himself to care about anything beyond vengeance in 30 years. Caring was dangerous. Caring made you vulnerable. But watching Elise navigate his fortress with such quiet dignity, seeing 5 broken women support each other with unwavering loyalty, something long dormant stirred in his chest. Something that felt dangerously like purpose. The medical wing hummed with quiet efficiency as Dr. Chen and her 2 medics transformed the guest suites into makeshift examination rooms. Pristine steel instruments gleamed under portable LED lamps, their sterile wrappings rustling as they were arranged on wheeled carts. Ladies first, Elise insisted, gently pushing Breyer forward when the doctor beckoned. Her heightened hearing caught the soft wheeze in Breyer's breathing, a detail that hadn't escaped Corvin either, judging by his tension. Ground rules, Corvin announced, his voice pitched low but carrying authority. Windows remain sealed. No one moves without an escort. If you hear Crimson Dawn, drop and find cover. Azure Night means clear. He positioned guards outside each suite, men whose breathing patterns Elise had already memorized. The examinations proceeded methodically. Breyer emerged, looking steadier, helping Dr. Chen assess the others. Odette's limp improved after proper bandaging. Talia's persistent cough received medication. Juniper accepted nutrients through an IV drip, color slowly returning to her pale cheeks. Elise tracked it all through sound and air currents, building a precise map of movement and space. She noted how Corvin's footsteps always returned to her vicinity, how his breath caught slightly when she navigated obstacles with practiced grace. Your price, she said finally, when the others were resting. For this protection, name it. Breath, he answered, the word hanging between them. She tilted her head, processing. Meaning? Stay alive. That's the price. Elise started to step forward, miscalculated the chair's position. Corvin moved instantly, his calloused fingers wrapping around her wrist with surprising gentleness. He guided her hand to the chair's back, touch lingering a heartbeat too long. I don't need handling, she said sharply. Noted. His tone was professional, but his pulse, where their skin connected, betrayed him. A guard appeared in the doorway, breathing hard from running. He held out a scrap of bloody fabric, cut from a dead man's forearm. Elise heard Corvin's sharp intake of breath. Viscari tattoo, he confirmed grimly. Found him at the base of the cliff. Storm took him, but there'll be others. How many? Elise asked. They hunt in teams of 4, Corvin replied. Standard protocol, point man, 2 flankers, rear guard. This was their scout. 3 more then, at minimum. They'll have backup units holding perimeter positions. His footsteps paced a tight circle. They're testing our response time, searching for blind spots. Dr. Chen appeared, her surgical gloves making soft snapping sounds as she removed them. Mr. Hale? A word? They moved aside, but Elise's keen hearing caught every whispered word. The blindness pattern is consistent across all 5 women. Chemical agents, likely administered through eye drops, as they reported. The damage appears reversible, with proper microsurgery. Can you handle it? Not here. They need a proper surgical suite, specialized equipment. I have colleagues across the border who could help, but we have to get them there alive, Corvin finished. His phone emerged, fingers tapping rapidly. I'll arrange transport for first light. Secure facility, vetted staff. The window for treatment isn't infinite, Dr. Chen warned. The sooner we act. Understood. Corvin's tone ended the discussion. Elise tracked his return by the subtle creak of leather shoes on marble. You heard. Everything, she confirmed. The others? They're resting. Armed guards outside each door, additional teams sweeping the grounds every 15 minutes. He paused. You should sleep. So should you. A quiet laugh, barely more than an exhale. I don't sleep much these days. Since your sister? The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. How did you? Your butler mentioned Miss Sarah's old room when arranging our accommodations. Past tense, heavy with grief. You touch her doorframe when passing. I hear the brush of fingers on wood. And you haven't slept properly in what sounds like decades. Silence stretched between them, taut as piano wire. 30 years, he finally said. Since she vanished, I was supposed to protect her. Elise reached out, found his arm with unerring accuracy, and now you're protecting us. His muscles coiled under her touch, but he didn't pull away. Rest, he repeated, softer now. Doctor's orders. Will you tell me more about Sarah? Another time. But his hand covered hers briefly, an unspoken promise. Elise nodded and let herself be guided to her assigned suite. The sheets were silk. She could tell by the whisper against her skin. The pillow held a faint trace of lavender. Outside, waves crashed against the cliff base, a steady rhythm like a lullaby. She lay awake, counting heartbeats and footsteps, mapping the movements of guards and medical staff. Somewhere in the massive house, Corvin would be watching monitors, coordinating defense, planning their extraction. A dangerous man offering dangerous shelter. The storm was passing now, its fury spent. Dawn approached, bringing with it both hope and threat. Surgery that might restore their sight, hunters that would try to reclaim their prey. But for now, in this fortress of marble and steel, 5 women breathed easier under the protection of a man who moved like contained lightning and touched like he'd forgotten how to be gentle. Elise traced her wrist where his fingers had rested, remembering the contradiction of calluses and care. Protection had a price, he'd said. Breath. Stay alive. Simple words masking complex intentions. The night deepened toward morning, each second carrying them closer to first light and whatever plans Corvin was setting in motion. In their separate rooms, 4 women slept under armed guard while a 5th kept vigil, ear-tuned to the symphony of safety and danger that filled these walls. Outside, somewhere in the dark, killers waited for dawn. Dr. Chen spread the scans across Corvin's mahogany desk, her finger tracing the precise patterns of damage. The study's leather and wood seemed to absorb her clinical words, making them heavier. See these markers? The chemical composition is engineered. Deliberate. The blindness was designed to be temporary. Corvin's hands, resting on the desk, went still. Explain. The damage follows identical patterns in all 5 women. Too perfect to be random. The agents target specific neural pathways. ones that can be restored with the right treatment. She pulled out another scan. They weren't meant to stay blind. This was inventory control. Keep them compliant during processing, Corbin said flatly. Then restore sight to increase value at sale. Precisely, these women were merchandise. The crystal tumbler in Corbin's hand cracked, a thin line appearing up the side. He set it down with exaggerated care. How long until the damage becomes permanent? 3 weeks maximum. After that, the neural pathways begin to atrophy. Corbin's phone appeared in his hand. Marcus, prep 2 convoy vehicles, armored SUVs, charity logos, full security detail, visible weapons. He paused. Then get me a 3rd van, plane, medical equipment, no markings. In the hallway, Elise pressed closer to the study door, her ear catching every word. The wood grain patterns under her fingers helped her maintain perfect stillness. Route the decoys north and east. The real transport goes south, through Vescari territory. Corbin's voice dropped lower. I need their lanes clear. Use my name if you have to. Elise's heart stuttered. Vescari, the name on the dead scout's tattoo, the ones hunting them. Her fingers clenched against the doorframe. Forged credentials for all vehicles, Corbin continued. Medical charity transport papers, everything clean enough to pass checkpoints. I want... The service elevator chimed softly down the hall. Elise heard the guard's sharp intake of breath, followed by the metallic slide of a weapon being drawn. Sir, the guard called quietly. Package in the lift. Corbin's footsteps crossed the study. Elise flattened herself against the wall as he passed, his presence like a cold front. She followed the sounds toward the elevator, counting steps. Velvet box, the guard reported. Clean, no devices. Dead drop protocol. Fabric rustled. Corbin lifting the box, a small click as it opened, then silence, heavy and absolute. Sir, the guard ventured. Clear the hall, Corbin ordered. His voice had changed, become something carved from ice. Elise started to retreat, but his hand caught her arm. Stay. She heard him dismiss the guard, then guide her into what felt like a smaller room, a security alcove based on the equipment hum. Hold out your hand. She did. Something cool and metallic dropped into her palm, a pendant on a chain. The metal was old, the design intricate under her exploring fingers. What is it? My sister's necklace, custom piece, one of a kind. She was wearing it the day she disappeared. His breathing had gone shallow. There's a cipher key with it, old-school codebook, the kind the Vescari used 30 years ago. The clinic, Elise whispered. You think it's connected to what happened to her? They're telling me it is. Keys clicked as Corbin typed rapidly. The cipher confirms it. Sarah was taken by the same people who took you. The clinic network. It's been operating for decades. Elise's fingers traced the pendant's worn edges. You said you make dangerous men disappear. Is that why? You've been hunting them all this time? Hunting shadows, dead ends, until now. Something in his voice made her shiver, rage compressed to diamond hardness. They just made a critical mistake. Using the old cipher, why would they? Because they're arrogant. They think showing me the connection gives them leverage. The pendant's chain clinked as he took it back. They expect me to negotiate, to choose between revenge for Sarah and protection for you 5. And what will you choose? His laugh held no humor. They miscalculated. Badly. His phone emerged again. Marcus, change of plans. I want every resource we have activated. Full war footing. The clinic network isn't just a target anymore, it's personal. Alarms chirped softly. Proximity sensors testing the perimeter. Corbin's attention shifted, predatory focus snapping into place. They're probing the grounds again, Elise noted. Let them. His hand brushed her shoulder, steadying. You should return to your room. The doctor wants to start prep work for your transport. Corbin. She caught his sleeve. I heard you mention the Vescari name, about using their smuggling routes. You thought I was trading you to them? It wasn't a question. The thought occurred. His fingers touched her chin, tilting her face up. I don't trade in people, ever. The Vescari will clear their lanes because they fear my name more than they want you. And if they don't... The subtle menace in his voice made her glad she couldn't see his expression. You'll make them disappear? Thoroughly. He guided her hand to his arm. Yes, come. Dr. Chen is waiting, and we have preparations to make. They walked in silence, Elise mapping their route by sound and air currents. The mansion hummed with controlled chaos. Guards mobilizing, medical equipment being moved, vehicles arriving outside. "Why did you really let us in?" she asked suddenly. "That first night?" He paused mid-stride. "Because you knocked." "That's not an answer." "Because for 30 years, I've imagined Sarah knocking on someone's door, begging for shelter, and being turned away." His voice roughened. "I couldn't do that to you, any of you." The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Then the moment passed, and Corvin's usual controlled precision returned. "Rest while you can," he said, stopping at her door. "Things will move quickly once we begin." Elise nodded, but held onto his arm a moment longer. "When this is over, when we're safe and can see again, will you tell me about her? About Sarah?" His pulse jumped under her fingers. "If we live through this, I'll tell you everything." Corvin's fingers moved across his laptop with military precision, the pendant's chain wrapped around his wrist. Lines of code reflected in his dark eyes as the cipher revealed its secrets. 5 units, he muttered. "Scheduled return within 48 hours. His jaw tightened. "They're treating you like inventory." Elise sat perfectly still in the chair beside him, tracking the subtle shifts in his breathing. "What else does it say?" "Transaction windows. Drop points." He paused. "Records going back 3 decades. The weight of those words settled between them. Elise turned her head toward the sound of his voice. "Your sister? Sarah." The name came out rough, like glass in his throat. "She was 17 when she disappeared. I was supposed to pick her up from a friend's house." His fingers stilled on the keyboard. "I was late. 20 minutes. That's all it took." "You've been searching ever since." "Hunting ghosts." Bitterness edged his tone. "While they operated right under my nose, moving people like chess pieces." The laptop clicked shut. This house, the isolation, it wasn't just protection, it was penance. Elise reached out, her hand finding his arm with surprising accuracy. "Locking yourself away doesn't help anyone heal." "It's not about healing." His voice dropped lower. "It's about focus, control." "And has that worked? All these years alone?" Instead of answering, Corvin touched his earpiece. "Marcus, redirect the extraction to 2100 hours. I want Team 3 and 4 pulled from the offshore site." He listened for a moment. "Yes, full tactical loadout." Elise's fingers tightened on his arm. "Something's changed." "The timeline." He covered her hand with his, the gesture at odds with his cold tone. "They're moving faster than anticipated." "You're not telling me everything." "No." At least he was honest about it. Elise tilted her head, reading the microscopic tells in his voice, the controlled breathing, the careful spacing of words. "There's steel under all that restraint," she observed. "I can hear it." "You hear too much." "It's all I have right now." His thumb brushed across her knuckles, the touch surprisingly gentle. "You have more than you know." He started to say something else, but his phone buzzed. "Report." Elise listened as he received whatever news came through, noting the subtle shift in his posture, the predator awakening. "Thermal ping at the culvert," he said after disconnecting. "Multiple heat signatures rising from sea level. They're here." "Yes." He stood, pulling her up with him. "Time to move." "The others?" "Already being relocated." His stride was measured as he guided her through the house. "There's a reinforced corridor behind the wine cellar, panic room at the far end. And you?" "I have other preparations to make." They descended stairs, the air growing cooler. Voices ahead, the other women being hurried along by guards. Elise recognized Juniper's quick steps, Talia's slower shuffle. "Corvin." She stopped, forcing him to pause. "Whatever you're planning." "Trust me." His hand cupped her cheek, thumb tracing her cheekbone. "Just this once." "I do trust you. That's what worries me." A low laugh, barely more than a breath. "Smart woman." He pressed something into her hand, a small device. "Panic button. Any sign of trouble, use it." Before she could respond, another guard approached. "Sir, movement at the southeast corner." "Take her to the others." Corvin's warmth disappeared as he stepped away. Metal whispered against leather, a blade being drawn. "Lock down and maintain silence until I give the all clear." "What about the doctor's preparations?" Elise asked. "Later." His voice had changed, become something dangerous and sharp. "Right now, we have uninvited guests to deal with." The guard took her arm, but Elise resisted for a moment. "Don't disappear on us." "I don't disappear," Corvin said softly. "I make others do that." His footsteps moved away, purposeful and silent as a hunting cat. The guard guided her down the corridor to where the other women waited. Juniper's hand found hers immediately. "What's happening?" Talia whispered. "We're about to find out," Elise replied, squeezing Juniper's fingers as the heavy door sealed behind them. Through the walls, they could hear nothing of what was happening above, but Elise imagined she could feel it, the tension humming through the house like a plucked wire, the careful dance of predator and prey about to begin. She clutched the panic button, wondering if Corvin had given one to each of them or if this was special treatment. Either way, she hoped she wouldn't need to use it. "How long do we wait?" Briar asked, her voice small in the darkness they all shared. "As long as it takes," Elise answered, thinking of Corvin's blade sliding free, of shapes rising from the sea like creatures from a nightmare. "He won't let them reach us." "You sound very sure," Odette observed. "I am." Elise leaned against the wall, focusing on the subtle vibrations through the stone. He's been hunting these people for 30 years. Now they've walked right into his territory. "And that's supposed to make us feel better?" Talia asked. Elise thought of the steel in Corvin's voice, the controlled violence in his movements. "Yes," she said simply. "It should." They fell silent, 5 women in the dark, waiting for whatever storm was about to break above them. Elise kept her hand wrapped around the panic button, but her thoughts were with Corvin, moving through his house like a shadow made of blades and old promises. She remembered his words about penance and control, about 30 years of solitude. Now she understood. It hadn't just been guilt driving him. It had been preparation. Every day in isolation had honed him into a weapon, waiting for exactly this moment. The shapes rising from the sea had no idea what they were walking into. This wasn't just another hunt for them. It was walking into the lair of someone who had spent 3 decades getting ready for them. Elise almost felt sorry for them. Almost. The atrium's glass walls turned the night storm into abstract art. Water rivulets casting spider-web shadows across marble floors. Silence hung thick, broken only by the whisper of combat boots and controlled breathing. Corvin moved like a liquid shadow between the indoor trees and stone planters, each step precise. His team communicated through hand signals, infrared markers visible through their tactical gear. 3 intruders had breached the south wall, another 2 through the service entrance. Salt water dripped from their wetsuits, leaving betraying trails across polished stone. The first muzzle flash lit up the space like lightning. No sound. Suppressors on both sides. A figure dropped behind a decorative column. Corvin's hand signals deployed his men in a closing net, herding the intruders toward the center court where the killing ground waited. In the panic room below, Elise pressed her ear to the wall, reading the vibrations and air currents through the ventilation system. Years of navigating without sight had heightened her other senses to razor precision. She could track movement by the way air displaced, count heartbeats in a room, feel the subtle shift of weight on floorboards. Something wasn't right. The pattern was too clean, too easy. "Corvin," she whispered into the panic button he'd given. Her. "They're letting themselves be pushed back. Check for tripwires." Above, Corvin froze mid-step. His boot hovered over a nearly invisible line stretched between planters. The trap would have taken his leg off at the knee. He touched his earpiece. "Good catch." His voice was barely a breath in her ear. "Stay down there." "As if we have a choice," she murmured, but her lips curved slightly. The firefight intensified. Though suppressed, Elise could track the exchange of gunfire through vibration. Glass shattered somewhere, probably one of the smaller decorative panels. A body hit the floor with a meaty thud. Another. The intruders were losing ground. Corvin moved with lethal grace, each action economical and precise. No wasted motion, no hesitation. He'd spent 30 years preparing for this, and it showed in every deadly step. A flashbang went off, its concussion traveling through the building's bones. Elise steadied Juniper as she startled at the impact. "It's okay," she soothed. "That was one of ours." Above, Corvin cornered the last attacker behind an ornamental fountain. The man tried to bring his weapon around, but Corvin was faster. The knife entered under the chin, angled up. Clean. Final. But not before the dying man grabbed Corvin's wrist and wheezed out words that turned the victory to ash. "Tracker. Under skin. One of them." Corvin keyed his radio. "Doc, prep for field surgery. We need to sweep them all." The panic room door opened 15 minutes later. Corvin's men escorted them to a sterile room where the doctor waited with surgical implements laid out on steel trays. "Who's first?" the doctor asked. They tested each woman in turn. When the scanner passed over Odette's shoulder blade, it chirped. Her face went chalk white. "How long?" she whispered. "How long has that been in me?" "Based on the scar tissue since your initial capture," the doctor said gently. "Local anesthetic will be sufficient for removal." Elise and Briar held Odette's hands while the doctor worked. Talia hummed softly, a lullaby that seemed to calm them all. Juniper paced, counting steps to keep her mind occupied. "Got it," the doctor announced after 10 minutes of careful extraction. He dropped something small and bloody into a metal dish. It pulsed with a faint red light, still transmitting. Corvin picked up the tracker with forceps, studying it. "Expensive tech, military grade." He set it on the floor and raised his boot. Before he could crush it, the device crackled to life. A cultured voice filled the room, smooth as aged whiskey and twice as toxic. "Corvin, old friend, how delightful to find you playing hero." Elise felt Corvin go perfectly still, the stillness of a predator scenting prey. "Silas!" The name fell like ice from his lips. "Still hiding behind your toys? Merely being efficient? You have something that belongs to me. 5 somethings to be precise." "They don't belong to anyone." A low chuckle. "Everything belongs to someone. Corvin! You know how this works. The merchandise." "Choose your next words carefully." Corvin's voice could have frozen hell. "Very well. Let's be direct. Return my property, and I ensure safe passage for all involved. Refuse, and we see how long you can keep 5 blind women alive, while my teams dismantle your fortress piece by piece." Odette's fingers tightened on Elise's hand. The other women had gone still as statues. "Counter offer," Corvin said softly. "Retreat now, and I let you keep breathing." "Always so dramatic," Silas sighed. "You have 1 hour to reconsider. I'd hate to damage valuable assets in the crossfire." Corvin's boot came down hard. The tracker crunched, taking Silas's voice with it. Silence filled the room like smoke. Elise could feel the tension radiating from Corvin in waves, could hear the controlled measure of his breathing as he reined in his rage. "You know him," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "He won't stop." "No." Corvin's footsteps moved closer. His hand found her shoulder, squeezed gently. "But neither will I." "What do we do now?" Juniper asked, voice small. "Now," Corvin said. "We prepare for siege, and I make some calls I've been waiting 30 years to make." Elise heard the promise of violence in his voice, felt the coiled energy in his touch. This wasn't just about protecting them anymore. This was personal. Had been personal since the moment Silas's name appeared on that cipher key. The storm outside intensified, waves crashing against the cliff face below. Inside, 5 women held onto each other in the sterile brightness of the medical room while Corvin issued quiet orders to his men. The hourglass had been turned. Time was running out. But Elise remembered the way Corvin moved during the firefight, like a force of nature contained in human form. She remembered 30 years of preparation, of patience, of purpose. Silas thought he was dealing with a recluse. He was about to learn he was dealing with a weapon that had been waiting 3 decades to be unleashed. The women huddled together in the medical room, their whispers growing frantic as the implications of a hidden tracker sank in. "What if there are more?" Juniper's voice trembled. "What if we're all bugged?" "They've been watching every move," Talia added, fingers twisting in her lap. "Everything we did, everywhere we went." "Stop!" Elise's command cut through the rising panic. "We need clear heads right now. Unity is our strength. It's how we escaped in the first place." Corvin's footsteps entered, measured and precise. "My team will conduct a full scan of everyone. No chances, no assumptions." The doctor approached Odette first, medical scanner humming as he passed it over her body. When it chirped near her collarbone, she went rigid. "Local anesthetic," the doctor murmured, prepping a syringe. Small incision, 10 minutes max. Briar and Talia held Odette's hands while the doctor worked. Elise tracked the procedure through sound. Metal instruments clinking, gauze tearing, Odette's controlled breathing. "Got it!" The doctor dropped something into a metal dish with a wet ping. "Show me," Corvin demanded. His boots clicked closer to examine the bloody device. "Military grade. Recent model. They spared no expense." After the doctor confirmed no other trackers, Corvin touched Elise's elbow. "Walk with me. You should understand what you're dealing with." He guided her through the mansion, describing each security measure in precise detail. Pressure plates beneath Persian rugs, motion sensors masked by crown molding, gun ports disguised as air vents. "The walls are reinforced concrete wrapped in limestone," he explained, letting her touch the cool stone. "Windows are ballistic glass. Every door has 3 locks minimum." "A sanctuary shaped like a trap," Elise observed. "The difference between a trap and a fortress depends on which side of the wall you're standing on." They reached what felt like a circular room. Sea air leaked through unseen seams, carrying salt and ozone. "The observatory," Corvin said. 360 degrees of armored glass. Best vantage point in the house. "For watching threats approach," Elise added. "Or keeping prisoners contained." "You're not prisoners." "Aren't we? Locked doors, armed guards, constant surveillance. Sounds familiar." "The difference is choice. You chose to come here." "Because we had nowhere else to go. The only path to safety is through my world, not around it." His voice softened. "I'll bleed for that path as many times as required." A radio crackled at his hip. "Sir, incoming transmission. It's him." Corvin's breath hitched, a microscopic tell that Elise caught. He pulled out the crush tracker and set it on a metal table. "Patch it through," he ordered. The tracker's speaker sputtered to life. "Such unnecessary violence, old friend." Silas's voice oozed charm like honey hiding poison. "Those devices aren't cheap. Bill me." "Oh, I intend to, along with the considerable expense of hunting down 5 valuable assets who seem to have developed an unfortunate independent streak. Speaking of which, how are my girls?" "Not yours." "Everything has an owner, Corvin. Everything has a price." A theatrical sigh. "Though I must admit, I'm disappointed. I thought we had an understanding about territory and merchandise." "They're people, not merchandise." "Semantics. The point is, you're harboring stolen property. That makes you a thief. And you know what happens to thieves in our world." "Is that a threat?" "A reminder, anyone who helps them dies, anyone who hides them dies, anyone who tries to move them across borders. Well, you get the idea." Elise felt Corvin shift, the whisper of leather as his hand moved to where she knew he kept a blade. "Let's discuss terms, Abariki," Corvin said flatly. "Now you're being reasonable. Shall we say noon tomorrow? The old meeting place?" 3 days. I choose the location. Getting greedy with my time? Getting practical about security. 3 days, my terms, or no deal. A pause stretched like pulled taffy. 2 days, neutral ground. I'll send coordinates." Agreed. The transmission cut out. Elise waited, counting Corvin's measured breaths. "You're actually going to meet him?" she asked. "Yes. To trade us back." His hand found her shoulder, squeezed once. "To set a trap. He'll be expecting that." "Of course, just like I'm expecting his double cross." The game isn't about surprising each other, it's about who executes better. Elise heard him tap commands into a tablet, followed by multiple phones ringing. "I need 3 identical convoys prepped," he ordered. "Different routes, different strike teams, full defensive capability. No one knows which vehicle carries the actual package until wheels up." More calls, more orders. Elise stood still, absorbing the controlled chaos of a tactical operation spinning up around her. Through it all, one question nagged. Why go through with the meeting at all? Why not just disappear us? Because Silas controls too many borders, too many officials. Running means looking over our shoulders forever. Meeting him lets me control the battlefield. Or he controls you through us. Corvin's footsteps stopped. She felt him turn to face her, felt the weight of his attention like a physical touch. "Do you trust me?" he asked quietly. "I don't know you, but you know enough to have knocked on my door instead of anyone else's." She considered this. "The other families, they would have sold us back immediately." "Yes." "You didn't." "No." "Why?" His pause carried weight. "Because 30 years ago, someone sold my sister. I've spent every day since then preparing to burn their world down. You 5, you're not just survivors. You're my way in." Elise absorbed this, turning it over in her mind. "Using us as bait could get us killed. Hiding you will definitely get you killed. At least my way gives us a fighting chance." More phones rang, more orders issued. Elise stood in the center of the storm. listening to the machinery of violence grinding into motion around her. She wondered if they'd traded one cage for another, if Corvin's protection would prove as false as the clinic's care. But she remembered his promise. I'll bleed for that path as many times as required. The question was whether his blood would be enough to buy their freedom, or if they'd all drown in the attempt. Corvin's study hummed with encrypted signals as he activated the secure line. Rain still drummed against bulletproof glass, creating a white noise barrier around the conversation. Your dedication to these women is admirable, Silas purred through the speaker. But surely we can reach an arrangement that benefits us both. I'm offering clean surgical passage. No questions, no traces. Not interested. Corvin's voice carried the temperature of Arctic waters. Think of their futures, old friend. Their families. Their lives before all this unpleasantness. I can make it like none of this ever happened. You mean after you sell them? Such an ugly word. We provide specialized services to discerning clients. These women represent significant investment. The answer is no. From her position outside the study door, Elise felt her stomach drop at Corvin's icy tone, the same clinical detachment she'd heard from the clinic directors, the voice of men discussing merchandise, not people. She slipped away before hearing more, her bare feet silent on marble floors. In the guest wing, she found paper and pen, letting her fingers trace the edges to write as straight as she could. Stay together. Stay safe. I'm sorry. The note complete, she folded it and slid it under Juniper's door. Down the hall, she heard Corvin issuing rapid-fire orders. 3 convoys, different routes, full defensive capabilities. I want those vehicles indistinguishable. Elise pressed against the wall as footsteps passed. Guards coordinating positions, medics preparing supplies. Through it all, she counted steps and memorized air currents, mapping her path to freedom. In his study, Corvin bent over the decoded ledgers, jaw tight. The cipher had revealed an extensive network. Shell corporations, private clinics, charitable foundations, all funneling money and bodies through sanitized channels. The same network that had swallowed his sister 30 years ago. Sir, his security chief reported. Dummy convoys are prepped. Medical credentials forged for all 3. First team rolls in 20 minutes. Corvin nodded, mind already gaming out angles and threats. And the real transport? Midnight, underground route, small team, minimal digital footprint. Good. Maintain radio silence once they're mobile. Dawn painted the horizon in watercolor grays as Elise navigated the mansion's maze by memory. Left at the air vent's hum, right where carpet gave way to stone, 23 steps to the service corridor. She'd spent hours learning this path, preparing for this moment. The courtyard door opened with a whisper. Cool air kissed her face as she stepped outside, using the wall as her guide. Somewhere ahead, engines idled, one of the medical transports preparing to move. She could do this, trade herself for the other's safety. Better 1 cage than 5. The van's back doors creaked open. Gentle hands helped her inside. It's all right, a woman's voice soothed. You're safe now. We're with the International Medical Relief Foundation. The credentials sounded genuine. The touch felt kind, but something in their practiced softness raised warnings she couldn't quite grasp. In his study, Corvin scanned transport logs and froze. The gate registered an outbound medical vehicle, 3 minutes before his first convoy was scheduled to move. Check all teams, he barked into his radio. Now! Sir, all units still in position, no movement. Corvin's blood turned to ice. He slammed the Victus through security feeds, found the courtyard. Camera. There. A white van with perfect medical insignia. Hijacked credentials that had fooled his systems. And Elise, stepping into its shadows, vanishing behind closing doors. The van rolled through the gates as dawn broke over the cliffs. Corvin watched it disappear around the bend, taking with it both his carefully laid plans and the woman who had begun to crack his armored walls. In the vehicle's clinical interior, Elise sat very still, listening to wheels on wet pavement. The woman's kind voice continued offering reassurance, but beneath the gentle words, Elise caught something else, the faint satisfaction of a successful hunt. She had walked into a trap, not to save the others, but to give their enemies exactly what they wanted, bait to draw out the rest. Corvin stood at his window, watching the empty road where the van had vanished. 3 decades of isolation had taught him to trust no one, to calculate every move. Yet in mere days, 5 women had upended his fortress, and now one had slipped the cuirassiers through his defenses, straight into the enemy's grasp. His phone chirped with an incoming message, Silas's number. "I believe we now have something to discuss," the text read. "Shall we renegotiate terms?" Corvin's fingers tightened on the phone until the case creaked. In his chest, something dark and violent uncoiled, the beast he'd spent 30 years containing. The remaining women huddled in their rooms, unaware they were now one fewer. Guards maintained their posts, the dummy convoys prepared to roll, but in his study, Corvin had already begun dismantling his careful plans. Elise's capture changed everything. The game board had shifted, forcing his hand. He'd promised her protection, promised to bleed for their freedom. Now she'd traded herself to protect the others, not knowing she'd given their hunters exactly what they needed. The phone chirped again. Another message from Silas. "She really is quite extraordinary. Such nobility, such sacrifice. It would be a shame to waste it." Corvin deleted both messages without responding. He wouldn't play Silas's game of words. Action would be his answer. Outside, the storm that had brought 5 blind women to his door finally broke. Sunlight speared through clouds, painting the cliff face gold. But inside the mansion, darkness gathered as Corvin prepared for war. His sister's pendant lay on the desk, its coded secrets exposed. Beside it, the crushed tracker still bore traces of Odette's blood. And on his screens, the forged medical van's route blinked steadily south, carrying Elise deeper into his enemy's web. The time for caution was over. The time for controlled violence had passed. Now there would only be war. The weapons vault hadn't seen light in 30 years. Corvin's fingers traced combination dials with mechanical precision, muscle memory unchanged by decades. Steel doors whispered open, revealing rows of specialized hardware he'd sworn to leave buried. "Sir!" His second, Marcus, stood at. "Attention! Teams are ready for defensive positions." Corvin pulled matte black cases from the shelves. "The women? Demanding to help. They're resilient." In the war room, Juniper's voice carried clear purpose, despite her blindness. "We know their faces, their voices. The layout of that place, let us testify." "They kept detailed records," Talia added. "We heard them logging everything." Briar and Odette nodded in agreement, their faces set with determination. No tears, no trembling. Just steel. Corvin studied them while activating a secure terminal. Numbers scrolled as offshore accounts awakened. Contacts he'd buried decades ago pinged acknowledgement. Favors hoarded like poison now found purpose. "Marcus, get Judge Santos on a clean line. We'll need witness protection fast-tracked." He turned to the women. "Your testimony could destroy them. But first we get Elise back," Briar finished. The van's GPS signature pulsed on tactical screens, winding south through industrial zones. Corvin overlaid historical data, property records, shell company transfers. A pattern emerged around a derelict ferry terminal. "Here," he tapped the screen. The Vescari Foundation runs pop-up clinics, 3 days only, targeting desperate families. They manufacture miracles, then vanish. "Mobile operating theaters," Odette said. "We heard them assembling equipment. The sound echoed off canvas walls." Corvin's jaw tightened. "Tents. Easy to strike, easier to burn." He turned to Marcus. "I want the estate locked down, triple the perimeter guard. No one approaches without confirmation codes." "What about extraction support for you?" "No, they'll be watching for tactical teams. I go in small and silent." Corvin loaded a duffel with specialized gear. "If I'm not back in 24 hours, activate Protocol 0. The kill switch package will release everything we have on their operation to every agency and news outlet globally." Marcus accepted the encrypted drive with grave understanding. "The women's safety is guaranteed, sir, with our lives if necessary." In the armory, Corvin selected weapons with surgical precision. No flash, no signature items, nothing to trace. The 4 women waited in the doorway as he worked. "We should be going with you," Juniper insisted. "No." The word carried absolute authority. "You're the key to burning their entire operation to ash. Your safety is non-negotiable." "Elise would say the same about you," Briar countered softly. Corvin's hands stilled on a weapon case. For 30 years, he'd locked himself in isolation, turning his pain into walls. Now 5 women had breached those defenses, and one had sacrificed herself, trying to protect the others. "She would," he agreed. "Which is why I'm going alone. Fewer variables." "You care about her," Talia said. Not a question. Corvin didn't answer. He couldn't afford that truth right now. Instead, he spread a paper map across the table, old habits refusing to trust anything digital. The ferry terminal sprawled across the waterfront, a maze of abandoned buildings and temporary structures. Red markers circled the central area where canvas peaks rose against the sky. Operating theaters where miracles were bought and sold. Where Elise waited, believing she'd traded her freedom for the other's safety. His finger traced the perimeter. Access points, cover positions, angles of approach. The mission crystallized with cold clarity. Marcus, initiate lockdown. I want the estate sealed tight as a tomb. No one in or out without my direct authorization. Yes, sir. Strike team is prepped for your command. No strike team. Solo insertion only. Corvin checked his weapons one final time. They'll be watching for any tactical movement. One man can slip through shadows they won't think to guard. The four women stood straighter, faces set with quiet strength. No tears or pleading. They understood the stakes better than anyone. Bring her back, Odette said simply. And then we'll help you burn their whole operation to the ground, Juniper added. Corvin nodded once, shouldering his gear. The weight felt familiar, like greeting an old friend he'd hoped never to see again. Marcus, initiate radio silence once I clear the gates. If anything changes here. 2 clicks on the emergency channel, Marcus confirmed. But nothing will change here, sir. We'll guard them with our lives. The women's faces turned toward Corvin's footsteps as he passed. 4 sets of unseeing eyes, yet each held unshakable determination. They'd survived hell together. Now they'd face whatever came as one. At the door, Corvin paused. When this ends, they'll never hurt anyone again. You have my word. We know, Briar said quietly. Just like we know you'll bring her back. He moved through the mansion's corridors, mind already shifting to mission parameters. 30 years of isolation had honed him into a weapon. Now that weapon had found its target. The ferry terminal waited on his map, red circle marking their temporary temple of false miracles. By nightfall, those canvas walls would fall. Their carefully constructed godhood would crumble. And Elise would come home. Corvin slipped into the pre-dawn shadows, leaving his fortress and its precious cargo under Marcus's protection. The weight of weapons felt right against his skin. The mission hummed in his blood. For 30 years, he'd locked himself away, turning grief into walls and guilt into isolation. Now those walls had crumbled, and in their place stood something far stronger: purpose. The paper map crinkled in his pocket as he moved. On it, a red circle marked their target. Inside that circle, canvas peaks reached for the sky like the spires of a corrupt cathedral. By nightfall, those spires would fall. Moonlight splintered across the ferry port's broken windows, casting silver threads through abandoned cargo bays. Corvin moved like a shadow between rusted containers, marking security positions and patrol patterns. Above, canvas theater tents billowed against the night sky, pristine white monuments to false charity rising from industrial decay. 3 teams waited on his signal, positioned with surgical precision. The divers had already slipped beneath the pier's rotting planks, following power cables to the main generator hub. Sappers crouched near auxiliary units, thermite charges ready. The strike team held position, waiting to ignite the banners that proclaimed healing and hope in gleaming gold letters. Corvin checked his watch. 3 minutes to synchronization. Inside the central tent, harsh surgical lights cast sterile shadows across white-draped equipment. Elise lay strapped to a prep table, leather restraints biting into her wrists and ankles. Her hospital gown crinkled with each measured breath as she tracked footsteps and voices, building a sound map of her prison. A nurse's station sat empty nearby, tools laid out in precise rows. While the staff discussed transfer protocols in hushed tones, Elise's fingers inched toward an unattended scalpel. The cold metal kissed her palm as she palmed it, concealing the theft with a slight shift of her body. 2 minutes. Working by touch alone, Elise pressed the scalpel's edge against the tent's thick canvas. She cut slowly, timing each tiny slice, with the generator's mechanical rhythm to mask the sound. A thin vertical vent appeared, barely wide enough to let smoke filter through. She tucked the scalpel beneath her leg as footsteps approached. Prep for transport, a clipped voice ordered. The buyer's team arrives in 20. 1 minute. Underwater, divers located the power junction. Shaped charges clicked into place with practiced efficiency. Above, sappers confirmed final positions on auxiliary units. Strike teams readied incendiary rounds, taking aim at the pristine banners that masked atrocity with benevolence. 30 seconds. Elise closed her eyes, steadying her breathing. The scalpel's weight grounded her as chaos approached. She'd survived months of darkness by learning to read the world through sound and air currents. Now those skills would guide her through whatever came next. The first explosion came as a muffled thump beneath the pier. Generator power died instantly, plunging the complex into darkness. Secondary charges took out the backup units in quick succession, leaving only emergency lights running on battery power. Shouts of confusion echoed across the port as fire bloomed against canvas walls. The strike team's incendiary rounds ignited the banners, sending flames racing across proclamations of mercy and healing. Smoke began filtering through Elise's hidden vent, carrying the acrid scent of burning synthetic fabric. In the sudden darkness, Elise tracked the panicked movements around her. Footsteps scattered, racing toward exits as smoke thickened. She kept her breathing slow and steady, conserving oxygen as she waited. A different set of footsteps approached, nearly silent, moving with lethal purpose. Familiar hands found her restraints in the dark, making quick work of the buckles. Elise recognized Corvin instantly by the steady rhythm of his heartbeat as he lifted her against his chest. "I've got you," he murmured, voice pitched low enough that only she could hear. "I knew you'd come," she whispered back, fingers curling into his tactical vest. They made it 3 steps toward the exit before another presence emerged from the shadows. The click of expensive shoes on concrete signaled wealth and authority. "How disappointingly predictable," Silas Viscari's cultured voice cut through the chaos. "Though I must admire your efficiency, Corvin. You've cost me several million in infrastructure tonight." Corvin's arms tightened fractionally around Elise. She felt the subtle shift in his posture as he turned to face the threat. "Consider it a down payment," Corvin replied, voice devoid of emotion. "Always so dramatic," Silas sighed. "But perhaps we can still salvage something mutually beneficial from this mess. I have a proposition for you." "Not interested." "Oh, but you will be." Fabric rustled as Silas moved closer. "You see, we've perfected the reversal process. One simple procedure and your lovely Elise could have her sight back. All it would cost is your surrender." Elise felt Corvin's heartbeat skip once, the only sign that the offer had landed. His voice remained steady. "And I'm supposed to trust you'll honor that bargain?" "You wound me." Silas's smile was audible. "I'm a businessman, Corvin. My word is my bond. One life for another seems perfectly equitable." Smoke continued filtering through the vent Elise had cut, carrying whispers of approaching sirens. Time was running out. "If I agree," Corvin said carefully, "I want proof. The procedure works first." Elise tensed, but years of blindness had taught her to read truth in breath and heartbeat. Corvin's pulse remained steady against her cheek. His free hand shifted slightly and she felt the solid shape of a detonator press against her side where only she would notice. "Of course," Silas purred. "I expected nothing less from the great Corvin Hale. Shall we discuss terms?" "We shall." Corvin's voice carried just the right note of resignation, but Elise heard the trick in his measured breathing, the subtle tell of a predator preparing to strike. She kept her body relaxed against his chest, giving no sign that she'd decoded his true intent. Sirens wailed closer as smoke continued bleeding through her hidden vent, marking the seconds until everything changed. The detonator clicked softly in Corvin's palm. A heartbeat later, the shaped charge beneath the pier's edge erupted with surgical precision. The explosion sent concrete and rebar raining into the harbor, cutting off Silas's escape route and any chance of reinforcements reaching them through the water. Screams echoed across the port as sections of pier collapsed. Emergency lights flickered and died, leaving only flames to illuminate the chaos. Corvin set Elise behind a steel container, positioning her away from the water's edge. "Stay here," he murmured. "Count to 200. If I'm not back, follow the sound of the boats." Before she could protest, he was gone, moving like a shadow through smoke and flame. Silas's expensive shoes scraped against concrete as he scrambled away from the crumbling pier. Corvin tracked him by sound, closing the distance in measured steps. "Your theatrical flair hasn't dimmed," Silas called out, trying to mask fear with bravado. "Though I expected more subtlety from—" Corvin's fist connected with his jaw, cutting off the taunt. They crashed into knee-deep water, waves churning around them as Silas fought back with desperate strength. But where Silas had spent decades directing violence from afar, Corvin had lived it intimately. A knee to the ribs, an elbow to the throat. Each strike precise, methodical, breaking Silas's resistance piece by piece. blood mixed with salt water as Corvin systematically dismantled the man who'd built an empire on stolen lives. "The consortium dies tonight," Corvin said, voice carrying over the splash of waves. His phone chirped once, confirmation that the data dump had begun. Every ledger, every transaction, every shell company masquerading as charity now flooding to journalists and prosecutors worldwide. Silas thrashed as his wrist snapped under Corvin's grip. "You'll burn with us," he spat. "Your hands aren't clean either." "I never claimed they were." Corvin drove his knee into Silas's spine, pinning him face down in the shallows. "But unlike you, I chose to stop." Sirens wailed closer as more of the pier crumbled into the harbor. Through gaps in the smoke, Corvin glimpsed emergency lights approaching from multiple directions. The consortium's protection wouldn't extend to open scandal, not with their crimes exposed to the world. Silas must have reached the same conclusion. He twisted suddenly, breaking free with the desperate strength of a cornered animal. But instead of running, he lunged toward the container where Elise waited. Corvin moved faster, his arm locked around Silas's throat, cutting off air with precise pressure. "You don't touch her," he growled. "You don't look at her. You don't even think about her." Silas clawed at the chokehold, movements growing weaker as oxygen deprivation set in. Corvin held him until consciousness faded, then let him slump into the shallow water. The incoming tide would keep him alive until authorities arrived. More explosions thundered across the port as secondary charges detonated, destroying evidence of the consortium's operations. But the most damaging revelations were already racing across secure servers, leaving digital fingerprints that no amount of money could erase. Through the chaos, Corvin picked out the distinctive rumble of police helicopters approaching. Time was running short. He moved back to the container where Elise waited, exactly where he'd left her. 198, 199, she whispered, tracking his approach by sound. 200. Perfect timing. He gathered her into his arms, cradling her head against his shoulder to shield her from smoke. "The boats are waiting." "Is he dead?" she asked as Corvin carried her through the wreckage. "No, prison will hurt him more than death." Corvin navigated around burning debris, keeping to the shadows. "The evidence is public now. Every clean hand that helped him will burn." Elise's fingers found his pulse point, reading truth in his steady heartbeat. "What about your hands?" "Bloody," he admitted. "But everything I've done since you arrived has been about keeping you safe. That won't change." The extraction boats idled just beyond the pier's collapse, hidden from approaching authorities by smoke and darkness. Corvin's team had them prepped for immediate departure, medical supplies already laid out. "The next few hours are about survival," he told her as they reached the first boat. "Not vengeance, not justice, just getting you somewhere safe to heal." Elise's hand found his face, fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "We survived together," she said firmly. "Or not at all." Corvin settled her carefully on the boat's cushioned bench as his team cast off lines. Sirens crescendoed behind them, but the sound grew distant as they accelerated into open water. The burning port receded into darkness as they pointed toward the horizon and whatever waited beyond. Medical equipment hummed to life as the onboard doctor began preliminary checks. Corvin kept one hand on Elise's shoulder, anchoring her as waves rocked beneath them. His other hand held his phone, monitoring the cascade of revelations now flooding news feeds worldwide. The consortium's carefully constructed facade was crumbling in real time. Charitable foundations revealed as fronts for trafficking, medical miracles exposed as engineered torture. Every pristine reputation now stained with ugly truth. Elise leaned into his touch as the doctor checked her vital signs. "Tell me what you see," she requested softly. Corvin looked past the boat's wake to where dawn was beginning to lighten the eastern sky. "The sun's rising," he told her. "The water's turning from black to deep blue. There's a pod of dolphins about half a mile out heading north. And behind us? Smoke. Emergency lights. The kind of chaos that comes when carefully maintained lies finally fall apart." He squeezed her shoulder gently. "But we're beyond their reach now." The doctor finished his initial assessment and moved to check the other passengers. Corvin kept his position by Elise's side, dividing his attention between security sweeps and monitoring her condition. The boats maintained a steady course toward international waters where a larger vessel waited to transfer them to safety. Waves slapped against the hull as they cut through pre-dawn swells. The sound of sirens had faded, completely, replaced by engine hum and the cry of seabirds. Elise's breathing remained steady despite the rough motion, her hand still resting over Corvin's heart. The Swiss clinic's examination room held none of the sterile menace of their previous captivity. Sunlight streamed through wide windows, warming the pale oak floors. Dr. Weber, a renowned ophthalmic surgeon, studied the scan results with methodical care while her team prepared treatment protocols. "The damage is extensive but reversible," she explained, her accent gentle. "We'll need to proceed in stages, allowing healing between procedures, but I'm confident we can restore vision to all 5 of you." Elise sat perfectly still in the consultation chair, hands folded in her lap. "The others go first," she insisted, just as she had during their initial triage. "I'll wait." From his position by the door, Corvin watched her quiet strength with carefully masked admiration. He'd arranged everything through layers of cutouts and shell companies, ensuring no paper trail led back to him or the women. As far as official records showed, they were charity cases, sponsored by a legitimate foundation. The 4 other women began their treatments that afternoon. Juniper went first, then Talia, followed by Briar and Odette. Each emerged with bandaged eyes and tentative hope. Corvin's security team maintained discreet positions throughout the facility, dressed as orderlies and maintenance staff, watching for any hint of threat. Later that evening, Elise traced her fingers along the window frame in her private room, mapping its dimensions. "You're still here," she noted when Corvin entered. "I thought you'd have disappeared into whatever shadows you came from. The shadows can wait." He moved closer, his footsteps deliberately audible on the hardwood floor. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm finally breathing clean air." She turned toward his voice. "But you didn't answer my question from earlier. What does Corvin Hale want when he isn't dismantling criminal empires?" The silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. Finally, he stepped close enough that she could feel his presence. "I want to learn the shape of your smile," he said quietly. "To memorize it with my fingers until you decide if you want mine in return." Elise's breath caught. She lifted her hand and he met it halfway, letting her explore the planes of his face. Her touch was feather-light as she mapped his features, the strong line of his jaw, the slight crook in his nose from an old break, the tension around his mouth that softened under her fingertips. "You're not in any of the official reports," she observed. "The consortium's collapse is being credited to anonymous whistleblowers and investigative journalists." "Better that way." His voice rumbled beneath her palm. "Shadows work best when they stay dark. And yet here you are in the light." "Here I am." Through the open window came the sound of night birds and rustling leaves from the clinic's walled garden. The other women were resting in their rooms, watched over by guards who looked like nothing more threatening than hospital staff. "Dr. Weber says my first procedure is scheduled for next week," Elise said. "Will you still be here?" "As long as you want me to be." The words held the weight of a vow. She nodded, fingers still tracing the contours of his face as if committing them to memory. "Tell me about the garden. I can smell the flowers, but I want to know what you see." Corvin looked out the window at the moonlit space below. "The walls are old stone, covered in climbing roses. There's a fountain in the center, marble, probably 19th century. The paths are gravel, lined with lavender, wooden benches under apple trees. It's peaceful." "A sanctuary without being a cage?" "Yes." He caught her hand, pressing it gently to his heart. "The difference matters." They stayed like that through the quiet hours, speaking softly of small things, the weather, the birds, the rhythm of hospital life beyond the door. Corvin described the stars as they wheeled overhead, naming constellations until Elise could picture the pattern of lights across the sky. As dawn approached, the other women began stirring in their rooms. An unspoken agreement passed through the group, and they gathered in the hallway, drawn to the idea of fresh air and open space. Corvin led them down to the garden, opening the heavy wooden door that separated inside from out. The morning air was cool and sweet with dew. Gravel crunched beneath their feet as they stepped outside. The fountain's gentle splash provided orientation, while the stone walls created perfect acoustics for echolocation. Elise paused just beyond the threshold, face tilted toward the rising sun. The others moved past her, spreading out into the space, Juniper to the lavender, Talia to a bench, Briar and Odette to the fountain. Their movements were cautious but unconstrained, claiming the garden as their own. Corvin remained by the door, watching. His presence was a promise of protection, but he made no move to direct or control. This moment belonged to them, 5 women stepping into the light, choosing their own paths through this peaceful space. The fountain bubbled, birds called from the apple trees, and somewhere beyond the walls, a church bell tolled the morning hour. Inside the garden, healing began with the simple act of breathing free. Sunlight streamed through the mansion's newly installed windows, catching dust motes that danced in the morning air. The cliff estate had transformed over the past months, shed its fortress skin for something warmer. Where black glass once sealed out the world, clear panes now welcomed dawn's gentle invasion. Elise stood on the terrace, her vision still adjusting to the world's gradual return. Colors came in soft halos, the silvery green of young olive trees, the deep blue of the ocean below. The other women moved among the plantings, their laughter carried on the salt breeze. "The southeastern corner needs another tree," Juniper called out, her designer's eye for symmetry fully restored. Briar wheeled over a sapling in its pot. "This one's ready. Talia, can you help with the hole?" Their Witness Foundation, funded by millions in seized consortium assets, had given purpose to their survival. They'd helped dozens escape similar operations, turned their trauma into a weapon against trafficking networks. The estate served as both sanctuary and command center, its security now protecting hope instead of isolation. Elise sensed Corvin's approach before his footsteps reached her, the shift in air currents, the familiar cadence of his breathing. Some habits from her sightless months remained, especially where he was concerned. "The irrigation system is installed," he said, coming to stand beside her. "The trees will have what they need to thrive here." She turned toward him, studying his face in the morning light. His features were clearer now, though she still traced them with her fingers when they were alone. "Like us?" she asked. His smile was slight but genuine, reserved solely for her. "Yes, though you never needed my protection to bloom." "No," she agreed, "but I chose it anyway, just as you chose to let light in after 30 years of darkness." Odette emerged from the house carrying a tray of coffee mugs, her movements confident on the stone paths she'd once navigated by sound alone. "Foundation meeting in an hour," she reminded them. "We have 3 new cases to discuss." Corvin nodded, his posture shifting subtly. In Foundation matters, he served as security advisor only, respecting the women's autonomy in running the organization. His violence remained absolute when needed, but it was now purely defensive. A shield, not a sword. Inside, the mansion's transformation was even more dramatic. Gone were the steel shutters and panic rooms. In their place, open archways connected sun-filled spaces. The war room had become a conference center where survivors planned their futures. The medical wing now housed counseling offices and rehabilitation spaces. Elise made her way to their private quarters, where fresh flowers sat in crystal vases and family photos lined the walls. She paused at her favorite, all 5 women at the surgical center after their final procedures, arms linked, smiling into reclaimed vision. "Sometimes I still can't believe how far we've come," she said as Corvin joined her. He wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, his chest solid against her back. "You made it happen, all of you. I just removed obstacles." "You removed quite a few obstacles," she teased, remembering the night he'd burned down the consortium's careful facade of legitimacy. "Quite thoroughly." His chuckle rumbled through her. "I'm very thorough about protecting what's mine." The word mine had once made her bristle, but she understood now. It wasn't possession, but devotion. Not a cage, but a choice made daily by both of them. Later that afternoon, as sunset painted the cliffs in amber and rose, they gathered on the terrace for a quiet ceremony. No priests or officials, just family bound by survival and triumph. The other women formed a circle, holding candles against the growing dusk. Elise wore a simple white dress that caught the fading light. Corvin stood before her in charcoal gray, his usual tactical gear exchanged for tailored elegance. Their fingers intertwined as they faced each other. "I choose you," Elise said clearly, her newly healed eyes meeting his. "Not because I need your protection, but because I want your partnership. Not from fear, but from love." Corvin's response was soft, but carried the weight of absolute truth. "You're mine forever." His thumb brushed her knuckles. "Not as a wall between you and the world, but as shelter when you choose it. Not as a cage, but as a vow." They exchanged simple gold bands, then sealed their promises with a kiss that made the watching women cheer and whistle. Talia popped champagne while Briar distributed glasses. Odette and Juniper scattered rose petals that the sea breeze caught and swirled around them all. As night settled over the estate, lights came on in every room. Warm welcome, replacing tactical illumination. Music drifted from the terrace speakers, and the 5 women took turns dancing with each other and with Corvin, who proved surprisingly graceful when not in combat mode. "I never thought I'd see this place feel like home," Briar commented, watching couples sway under string lights. It's amazing what some windows and olive trees can do, Juniper replied with a smile. Elise and Corvin moved together at the edge of the terrace, the rhythm slow and intimate. Her head rested against his shoulder, while his hand traced patterns on her back. The security teams maintained their vigilance from discreet positions, but tonight was about celebration, not survival. Happy, Corvin murmured against her hair. Beyond words, she answered. Though I still map you by breath sometimes, even with my sight back. Old habits. I like that you know me by more than eyes alone. His arms tightened fractionally. That you see all of me, light and shadow. They danced until the moon rose, casting silver across the water. Inside, every room glowed with gentle illumination, the house transformed from fortress to sanctuary. The olive trees rustled in the night breeze, their leaves whispering promises of growth and permanence. The future stretched before them, guarded but not imprisoned, gentle but not weak, decisively theirs to shape together. Each sunrise would find them stronger, each sunset remind them of choices freely made. They had built something rare and precious from the ashes of trauma, a love that protected without possessing, that cherished without chaining. Ocean light painted the cliffs in shifting patterns of silver and blue. Music and laughter echoed from the terrace, and in every open window, every unlocked door, every blooming tree lay proof that even the deepest wounds could heal into something beautiful.